of a teenage girl with a debilitating chronic illness, says she suspects a vaccine given at school could be to blame.
15-year-old Holly Oakley from Bedlington in Northumberland was a sporty, active girl who had football trials at Newcastle United. She's now confined to her bedroom. She's dropped out of school and she's regularly admitted to hospital with severe vomiting.
Her symptoms began at the same time she was given a vaccination called Gardasil. Now, it's been given to 12 and 13-year-old girls in UK schools since 2008, and it prevents a virus called HPV, which can lead to cervical cancer.
Holly's mum, Vicky, has been telling BBC Newcastle's Claire Hawthorne about her daughter's illness.
After the first vaccine, she was fine. After the second vaccine, she got some really bad stomach pains. And then she had a third vaccine 3 or 4 days after that. She started vomiting, just randomly vomiting. And the symptoms just got worse after that to where we are today, where she can't get out of bed. And then from the vomiting became extreme nausea and tiredness around a period as well. So much so that she would have to be hospitalised. And then in January, she was very, very poorly. She was in hospital and she collapsed in hospital. And to be fair, she hasn't really recovered from that, and that was the last time she was at school. We've had to pull her out of school. She's having to resit year 10 at home. I've had to give up work.
And what explanation do the doctors give you now for Holly's condition?
I've had everything from she's bulimic to it's in her head, there's nothing wrong with her. I've had a doctor say all she needs to do is get out there and continue with her life, just get on with life. But we've got an interim diagnosis of chronic fatigue, but they haven't really got any answers. All I know is that the majority of doctors don't agree with the fact that, we say that it's vaccine damage. They haven't got that opinion. I would never say to anybody don't have it because, every parent has to make that decision on their own. What I would say is make sure that you fully understand what you're giving your child. The information leaflet that you get from school does not show all of the symptoms that are associated with this drug. Make sure you search and understand the side effects of the HPV vaccine.
Have doctors given you any idea of a prognosis or if she might improve?
The doctors have said the prognosis can range from she could get fully better, she get partially better, or she may not get better.
Well, the government's position on this is quite clear, that there is no proven link between the HPV vaccine and these particular symptoms. We're going to hear from Public Health England in a few moments.
Holly's family have been getting support from a group called UK Association of HPV Vaccine Injured Daughters. Freda Birrell runs this group.
I've got over 340 members at the moment. There's only so many times you can call it a coincidence. My own feeling is that the vaccination triggers something that's within their bodies. And it's a tragedy what's happening because this is not just happening in the United Kingdom. This is happening also in every country in the world wherever these vaccines are administered. There has to be a stop of the vaccine for them to investigate it properly. They have got to take into account all the comments that have been sent to them by families, because I encourage as many families to go and visit their MPs. Because the more they get to hear what's happening in their constituency, then they have to pay attention.
Well, in Ireland, a campaign group called Regret is calling for an independent investigation into the side effects of the HPV vaccine. Anna Cannon is their spokesperson.
We represent more than 400 teenage girls in Regret, which stands for Reactions and Effects of Gardasil Resulting in Extreme Trauma. These girls come from all corners of Ireland. They are mirroring symptoms that are also listed in the manufacturer's patient information leaflet. And they include things like seizures, severe headaches, joint pain, loss of feeling in limbs, muscle weakness, a new range of autoimmune conditions. And very concerningly are that we now have several girls who have been diagnosed with ovarian failure, which is early onset menopause. So, these are really life-changing, debilitating and painful symptoms that many have struggled with for years following the HPV vaccination.
Well, the company that makes Gardasil has this to say.
Patient safety is Sanofi Pasteur MSD's highest priority, and we encourage people to self-report or report on behalf of others any changes to their health which may or may not be medically confirmed. These reports are taken extremely seriously and are used to monitor long-term safety. However, they do not necessarily prove a causal relationship with the vaccine, but provide health authorities with a line of inquiry for further investigation, if required.
Well, a little bit earlier, I spoke to Glenn Wilson, who's head of the Screening and Immunisation Team for Public Health England in the North East and Cumbria.
Well, of course, I understand why reports like this will cause anxiety and perhaps raise questions in people's minds. However, I'd just like to reassure that the evidence does show that the HPV vaccine is a safe and effective means of protecting girls against cervical cancer. Like all medicines, the vaccine underwent extensive clinical trials before it was approved for use, and now that it's in use, the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Authority, or the MHRA, continue to collect and investigate reports of side effects. Since the vaccine programme was introduced back in 2008, over 3 million girls in the UK have received the HPV vaccine, and many, many millions more worldwide. Of course, while vaccines can cause some side effects that we'll all be familiar with, the kind of redness, soreness at the injection site, there's absolutely no evidence of a link between HPV vaccine and the development of any long-term or chronic illnesses.
But for those support groups that believe there is a problem and the girls they've heard from appear to have side effects that are in line with what the drugs companies say could happen, what is your response to them, the girls whose lives essentially have been ruined?
All of the adverse reactions or side effects are reported and monitored and investigated, and the reason that we do that is so that there can be an investigation to identify whether there is a real cause and effect link, or whether, unfortunately, it is potentially just down to chance, and that is the whole reason for the reporting and investigating process.
But obviously for a very small minority of people, they feel there has been a problem. How much monitoring goes on of these apparent cases of side effects?
There are robust systems in place. The MHRA that I mentioned previously do collect reports of side effects, not just for this vaccine, but for all medicines and vaccines. And they do monitor the reports that come in, and where there are signs of patterns, for example, they will investigate them.
When the girls are going to be vaccinated in the schools, how much literature do parents get? How much information do they get, or do they have to go and search that out?
When the school nursing teams are going in to offer the vaccination, there'll be information provided at that time. I would recommend anyone who receives the letter or the invitation for their child to be vaccinated, if they do have any questions or that they feel that they haven't got enough information, there will be contact details on that letter for the school nursing provider, that's the service, and I would encourage parents to contact the school nurse service with any questions or concerns before the vaccination session, so they can have all of the information that they need to make an informed decision.
Can you just explain the benefits as to why the vaccine is routinely given to girls in schools? So for people listening, for parents, for grandparents listening to the show, what are the benefits of girls getting this vaccine?
The key benefit of the vaccine is that it protects girls against the development of cervical cancer, which is one of the most common cancers in young women in the UK. We know that the vaccine is highly effective at preventing infection with the types of HPV that are responsible for the majority of cases of cervical cancer. And it's estimated that the vaccine programme could save around 400 lives in the UK every year. There is also an added benefit with the vaccine that's currently in use in the UK, that it protects against not only cervical cancer but also genital warts, which is one of the most common sexually transmitted infections in the UK.
So as far as cervical cancer is concerned, the smear test is not effective enough by itself then?
The smear test is a highly effective test. Since cervical screening was introduced, we've seen death rates from cervical cancer fall by around 60%. So it is very effective. However, screening is only available to women aged 25 and over. And screening is there to detect abnormalities that are already present that may go on to develop into cervical cancer. Now, we know that almost all cervical cancers are caused by HPV, which is a virus, which is a sexually transmitted virus. And vaccination is offered before girls become sexually active, and the aim is to prevent that infection from happening in the first place, and therefore to prevent those abnormalities from occurring. It's really important that your listeners are aware that this is not an either-or choice between the vaccination and the screening. The best way to protect against cervical cancer is for girls to have the HPV vaccine at school and then to attend for cervical screening from the age 25.
Well, that was Glenn Wilson, head of the Screening and Immunisation Team for Public Health England in the North East and Cumbria. We'll have more on this story in the next hour when we'll hear what Cancer Research UK have to say about the HPV vaccine. Just after 7:15.
Right, we'll make this snappy then.